To call to order this regular meeting of the Palumbo City Council on the 13th, 2024. City Recorder, could we begin with a roll call, please?
Jessica Andrade.
Present.
Diane Crocker.
Here.
Matt Lehman.
Here.
Christopher McMorrin.
Here.
Teresa Nielsen.
Here.
And Council President Ruth Causey.
Thank you very much. I am here. Okay. Without the first item on our agenda is a fun item. I'd like to acknowledge and present the certificate of appreciation. Are you awake?
Yes.
To Lige Weedman for 10 years of dedicated service. Thank you for your outstanding contributions over these years of service and all your efforts to help Palumbo continue to be a great place to live, work, learn, and play. I'm going to hold on to this until Mayor Jones has a chance.
All right.
But I wanted to thank your hand.
Yep.
Shake your hand. And thank you especially for driving up our street in the snow and ice storm.
Yep.
Nobody can understand.
That's what we're here for.
You're the only vehicle I saw for 4 days.
And I was out mowing the lawn last week, and
Yep.
he personally handed my packet to me.
Wow.
So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
He's a good guy. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You don't have to stay for the entire meeting. You just. So you could run for city council in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Lige.
Thanks.
Send us public comments. Do we have one signed up for public comments?
He had come in and said that he wanted to appear. He's not here tonight, and I don't have anyone else signed up.
Okay. Right. With that, then I have on our consent agenda the city council meeting minutes of April 8th, April 22nd, and the OLCC annual liquor license renewals. Do I have a motion to approve?
I had a question. I'm just curious. I didn't see Dirt Road on the liquor license,
Brewery.
so that doesn't fall into that.
Breweries and tasting rooms and wineries do not operate under the same OLCC licensing requirements that restaurants do.
Okay. Even if they don't serve their own stuff.
They just have really good lobbyists.
Good for them. All right. That's it.
Thank you very much. Great question. There will be a quiz. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Thank you very much. Motion by Councilor Lehman, second by Councilor Blake. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Decision unanimous. Okay, our next item of business is the engineer of record.
Our Public Works Director is joining us virtually, and I believe our engineer, West Tech Engineering, is here virtually as well. So I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Is this for the, I couldn't hear, I had my speaker turned down a little bit. Was it for the stormwater master plan?
No, engineer of record first.
Engineer record. Yes, we put out an RFP for engineer or city engineer, and we interviewed or not interviewed, excuse me, we had 4 applicants, which we scored per the state procurement guidelines, and West Tech was our top choice with Keller and Associates, close second. After discussion, we thought it would be a good idea to have a backup engineering firm to help with other projects if need be, and keep West Tech as our initial engineer record for the city.
Okay, do we have any questions for Kevin? Councilor Andrade?
How did the costs kind of work out? Are there like costs for retaining the engineers, or is it kind of like we have an agreement with you and we want to know what the price is for this kind of thing that you're going to be doing for us?
We haven't approached that subject yet. We are coming to get the council's approval for using the two engineering firms, and then write up another or write up the agreement, the contract agreement, and bring it back to the council at a later date for approval. So we haven't gotten pricing or anything else yet.
Is that how it's normally done? I'm just used, I honestly don't know. I'm used to seeing quotes with, you know, the RFPs. And so not seeing that was taken into account first before drawing up the contract was kind of surprising.
Chris might have to correct me on this, but my understanding with the RFPs for requests for services, you can't discuss costs until after they have been approved and you've chosen who you want to go with, and you start negotiating a price.
There's different ways to go about it. On this, it was a request for services, so we want to get the most qualified and best applicant, and then once we have that in place, then we negotiate a contract. And if we can't come to an agreement on a contract, then we would look at whoever came in second as the most qualified to fulfill our needs. And most qualified doesn't mean biggest, and it doesn't mean it's, you know, based on that criteria that we put out, whoever scored the highest. So that's typically the way that the requests for services are responded to.
I'm thinking about the attorneys, like we had that built into, I guess I don't see how that's different. Aren't those services?
The request for attorney, they provided us some estimates, but I don't believe we scored them based on cost. So they gave us an idea of what their principles and things would be, but I don't believe any points were associated with those costs. That was just an information one. On that one also, we had a sample contract language as well they looked at, and we didn't do that with this one.
Okay.
So we will negotiate those when they're going to give us going rate for, you know, any of these are going to have their going rate that they charge. I think to the first part of your question was how do those get estimated? And it depends. Some of them we get billed the hourly. We don't pay any type of like retaining fee for them. So it's mostly hourly, or for bigger projects, they'll actually submit a project proposal and it'll have the estimates in there and what they will charge us. And we'll agree to that ahead of time if it's within budget. Typically, we'll bring the project to you, you'll approve the project, and then we'll go to West Tech and say, here's the project. They'll do a proposal, and if it's in the budget, then I'll sign it and we'll move forward. We don't necessarily bring those back to you because it's, again, within budget. The engineer of record is like the city engineer, right? So it's really just an extension of the city. So we're not bringing all those proposals back to you. If it's within budget, we move forward like it was a department within the city.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor?
How often have we needed two engineering companies, or is it not that we're going to need two at the same time, but maybe if one is busy on another job, the second one fills in? How does that work?
That was kind of our approach to this. If West Tech is backed up, or when we do have a project, we might have them both look at it and give us prices on designing and letting it out for contract to do.
And is it more costly, sorry,
Go ahead.
is it more costly to retain a support engineer rather than just having the one? Is there added cost involved?
No, there's only a cost if we use their services. West Tech has been our engineer of record for many years. We don't get a bill from them unless we use their services or they do any work for the city. Other than that, it's not a monthly cost. And same with the support engineer.
Kevin, does Keller Associates have any expertise, any specialized expertise that West Tech does not?
No. Well, we didn't look at surveying. I don't know if they have an in-house surveyor or not. Keller, West Tech has used Barker Surveying for many years, so they use an outside firm for their surveyors.
I know there are instances in the past where you've had to go to a specialized firm for certain services. Is that correct?
Yeah. Such as the reservoir, there's a lot more in-depth concrete structural concerns with that. So we had to use a specialized concrete structural engineering firm to come up with the repairs and everything for that. Bridges, other items like that are specialty things. They're usually an outside engineer.
Curious about the criteria. I just feel all three of those have the word experience in them. So I guess was curious how those criteria were developed, and I want to make sure we're not sort of skewing it towards the one we've always worked with by placing so much emphasis on experience as opposed to skills or other sort of things that might be important even if they're not as experienced with us.
Yeah, these are abbreviated quite a bit. There's quite a bit that's in this. It really comes down to their specializations, and experience is really their skill set. Not necessarily experience with the city of Philomath, but just overall experience and skill set that's there. Qualifications experience, qualifications is a big part of that. So they each had to list out their individual personnel and the different certifications they have, the different levels of engineering certifications, things they can and can't do. So there was a lot in there. It was pretty well rounded. I think to that point, some of the, a little bit smaller firms or even some of the newer firms that haven't been around as long as West Tech has still scored relatively well in a lot of these areas because they do have very skilled professionals. But in the ones that were lower, they definitely didn't have the level of experience that we would want going into a big project that we want somebody that's got a lot of experience there. So an engineering experience goes a long ways for sure. So it probably did weight a little bit heavier on experience, but skill sets in there and personnel's in there. I think generally speaking with Keller, I want to make this point because I don't know that was covered here. With Keller, we're not necessarily getting a lot more width, but we're definitely gaining a little bit more depth. Where if West Tech is busy with a couple other projects, Keller is a much larger engineering firm, and they're typically one or two deep in just about any area that we would need them. So they'd be available if we needed to not have to bump a project out till next year or 2 years out when West Tech's going to have the bandwidth to take something on, which is nice. And the benefit of getting an agreement with Keller now in the second role is then when a project does come up, we don't have to do another RFP or an RFS for that. We can just have them as our kind of second chair and go to them as needed and not kind of delay the project even more by going out for specialized engineering services.
Counselor Lehman.
What's the duration of the contract that we're going to be proposing?
5 years with 2 5-year renewals available.
Thanks.
Any other?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the recommendation of retaining West Tech Engineering as the engineer of record and Keller Associates as support engineer and direct staff to prepare contracts and bring them back to council at a future meeting.
Second.
Okay, motioner Motion by Counselor Nielsen, second by Counselor Lehman. Are any further questions or discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate the efforts. Our next agenda item is, resolution 24-11, authorizing application for the Oregon Department of Energy's Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant for electric vehicle charging infrastructure. I see this is Chelsea's agenda item.
Also the night free tonight with one item on the agenda. Nice night out there, so happy to cover for her on this one. Just as it says, so this is one of those required resolutions that the grant, make sure that the city staff get in front of the city council to make sure that you're aware of the grant that we're looking to apply for. As she stated in the agenda item summary, this is in line with our strategic plan. We've talked about getting electric vehicle charging stations as part of the streetscape project. It was in the original project and had to be taken out just for financial reasons. And so this is a good opportunity to come in with some of these newer grants and try to get EV stations back into our downtown area. We have a couple of areas in mind, but we've not settled on anything specific yet. I think mostly the kind of top spot we're looking at now would be on 13th Street, just to the side of the Pioneer building. There's no business entrances or exits there. It's a side of a building. There's already parking in that location. So, and it's right there in that downtown area. We want people to stop and park and hang out for a few hours. So that's kind of the top choice right now, but we've got some other criteria we've got to get through before anything gets approved. So this is just, again, some kind of boilerplate language in the resolution we can pass on to the state to let them know that we are approved to apply for this grant.
Counselor Lehman.
I'm all in favor of this, but I do have some questions, and one of them is how do those charging stations get managed and maintained, and who's responsible for them, and is there any financial incentive for the city to maintain those and keep them going? As in, do we make any money off of having the charging stations, or is it just kind of out there and a third party would manage them, or?
This program, it's a third party, so we would select who we wanted to contract with, and then we would essentially put the grant towards the installation of them and turn over management and operations to them. So they would have management, operations, maintenance would be put on them. Because it's in the public right of way, part of that agreement talks about upkeep and maintenance, and there's some consequences if they're not maintaining them. But I haven't seen the level of detail in those contracts yet. But I know, talking to other cities, I know of some where those EV stations have fallen into disrepair and not been managed, and they've been able to cancel contracts and enter into new contracts with other companies that do that. So there's some protections there. I'm just not that familiar with them yet. Thanks.
Counselor McNeil.
Franchise fee or like rent or anything, or is it just we turn it over to them and then?
Cities charge any type of like space rent or lease or anything for that usually right away. I think it's seen as a public benefit and benefit to the downtown area to attract those.
Seems like a huge benefit to the company managing. Oh, sorry.
Counselor Lehman.
I love the idea of us building charging stations. I'm not in love with the idea of the state subsidizing a for-profit company to have more outlets for their profits. Just my personal opinion.
I would agree. With the evolution of electric vehicles, which is moving and changing quite rapidly, I would imagine that these charging stations will also evolve and change. Do you have any idea how frequently they have to be upgraded?
Yeah, so I'm gonna skim on the little bit about electric fuel charging stations that I know, just the tip of the iceberg. It does change. I mean, phase 2 has been out for a while. There's now phase 3, which is much, much faster. Initially, I think even our strategic plan, we talked about looking at phase 3. After some very preliminary discussions with this program that Chelsea's had, they strongly discourage going from the phase 3. They see that as a solution to like replace the gas station, that you'll have these fuel stations that will go that quick. But for these ones within the right of way in the downtown areas, they're still strongly recommending the phase 2 because it's enough time to kind of top off and hang around in the area for a while, but not so quick that you're just going to sit in your vehicle and wait 10 minutes or 15 minutes and then go, right? So there's still some public benefit that's being done by having these electric vehicle charging stations in your downtown is the argument. It's a matter of what is that benefit as opposed to the amount of right of way that you're going to give up or designated parking area, if you see it as that way, that you're giving up by having an electric vehicle charging station there.
Let's see, I'd like to take it.
There's a question over here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Driving.
Is there a way to write into the contract, like a gas tax fee, but like electric charging fee of some kind?
I don't know.
I would like you to look into that, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion to approve the resolution, but I would like to also instruct the city manager to look into the financial advantage to the city of these charging stations. And I think if I recall the initial discussions, I know our esteemed mayor is much more interested in this than some of us are, but I seem to recall that there is money to be generated.
Just walked by on the other side of the street if we want to go flagging down.
Eagle eye right there.
He's been in here before, he knows where we're at. You might be coming this way.
You didn't make a motion just now, did you?
I did.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Can you
Do it
repeat it?
And I will second.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you need to repeat it anyway.
Yeah, because I think you said that you would entertain a motion, so I don't know if.
did.
So Councilor Cossey, did you make the motion?
I will make the motion.
Yeah.
Any further questions or discussion?
I have one more question. Does this actually cost the city of Philomath any money? Besides the right of way?
That time.
There's a match. It doesn't cover 100% of the construction costs. There's a match that we may be required to pay. I think sometimes those agreements get made with whoever's going to be operating it. But I think it comes down to numbers and cents at that point, so I don't know. But this allows us to apply for the grant and move that much closer, and we will be bringing back the actual contracts and agreements that'll have that level of detail in them. So that leaves it a little bit walk into the darkness. I get that, but we're not committing to anything here other than we're applying for a grant that will help fund this should we choose to proceed at that point. So it gets us far, and I will do some more research. And again, Chelsea's been digging at this a lot deeper than I have.
All in favor of resolution 2411? Please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. The next item of business is the storm drain master plan.
Rach, you didn't think you'd say it.
Yep, we have Mr. Ray Engel from West Tech Engineering, who is the author of our stormwater master plan with us to answer any questions. throw something harder at him, then where does rain go when it hits the ground? Because we know it all flows downhill to the river. So he's ready to knock some of these pitches out of the park. So let him have it.
Thank you for your efforts in addressing the numerous corrections that I submitted. Oh. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Are there any questions, Councilor Andrade?
Yeah, I want to thank you also. There've been too many reports that we've come across where we don't have these explicit and detailed statements of assumptions and laying out of processes, and they were all here, and I loved it. Thank you. And then I don't know. This is kind of like a broader question first. So if I understand correctly, currently there's no like treatment of our stormwater before it reaches the major drainage areas besides any sort of like detention ponds for things to settle. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, cool. And so then the stormwater drainage master plan is solely concerned with preventing flooding, whereas like environmental pollution and such are being handled by other state and federal agencies. Is that correct?
At this point, I would say yes. There's, and Kevin can speak to this in more detail and probably already has at other times with regards to the responsibilities under the MS4 permit within the Corvallis area. So there are things that are going on there, but the focus, the primary interest with this particular storm drain master plan was looking for parts of your system that are inadequate to handle the.
Sorry, your audio is dropping out a little.
Okay, sorry about that. The primary focus of this master plan was with the quantity of runoff and the areas of town, of the system, where we noted that the pipes were either undersized or aging and need of attention sometime in the reasonably near future, basically within the 20-year typical lifespan of a plan like this.
Thank you. I just, because I wasn't quite sure, like I don't know what I don't know. Like I wasn't sure how you're able to manage for those like potential pollution related things along with, like how do you integrate the two? Because I saw in the plan that it said that there wasn't any, they didn't take into account, I have, what was it? Yeah, I don't remember what it is because I don't have the plan in front of me, but basically just saying like all the environmental related stuff happened within other plans and stuff. And so I'm just trying to figure out like, were those taken into account while developing these analyses?
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Kevin, if you have something you
Oh,
want.
I was just going to say the environmental portion of this takes effect on, as Ray said, with our NPDES permit, and the new permit coming out requires that stormwater be retained on site. So if a shopping mall goes in, they'll be required to have treatment and detention. So they're not, so they're treating the water, and they also aren't discharging any more water than what was historically discharged from that site. So more of the treatment is being moved on to private and public projects. And I think our master plan focuses more on that water that's already in some of the existing places and moving it efficiently to where it needs to go. We also have the new bioswale from the ODOT project down on 9th Street that is a water quality basin or swale. So we do have some extra that swale on 9th Street covers a large portion of our stormwater. So that's where we're getting treatment from, or will be.
Thank you. That just, I wasn't quite clear on how it all connected, so I appreciated that.
Sure.
There are other questions?
I mean, I have other questions.
Go right ahead.
The figure 2.1 on page 2.8, it looks like the boundaries of the study area aren't including all of city limits and the urban growth boundary. I'm guessing that probably has something to do with the way that it was analyzed, but could you explain why that is?
What we obviously pick up the vast majority of the city limits in UGB, but there are some small areas on the peripheral. One of the things that's important to keep in mind with the master plan is that we're looking at larger scale drainage areas for, and I think we have it noted in there that typically we're focused on systems that require 18-inch pipes and larger. And so if you've got a small isolated area on the perimeter, it pretty much, it just doesn't really rise to the level of a master plan attention. So you can see that we pick up a large area to the north of the city that's outside, because all of the water that's up there comes through the city. So that's what we're focusing on is the larger basins and the areas that are going to generate the larger amounts of runoff. That leaves a few little areas that are typically isolated and on the periphery that don't, that we just didn't look at because of that reason.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay. This might be more of a question for Chris or Kevin. I saw that there was a section that talked about two private culverts, I think it was. And I just wanted to verify that they are in, like, the property owners know that they're theirs, and that, I was just kind of curious about the history, like, so that if anything goes wrong, they know they have to maintain it, and there's not any sort of issue when maintenance does come around and it's pointing fingers of like, no, you're supposed to do the maintenance of it. I can tell you the page it was on. It was 5-3.
There are, I can speak to the locations. I'm sure Kevin has more information on the local relationships, et cetera. But most of those are at the southern edge of the system where the water is leaving. For example, at the west end, there's a large drainage way kind of running through the area north to south where the couplet splits or comes back together depending on which way you're going, and it runs south from there. And so there's some large culverts under the highway couplets in that area, but when you go south of there, you go outside of the system and it's private property. And it's my understanding from discussions with Kevin that that those out there have not historically been owned or maintained by the city. And there's probably at least 2 or 3 locations like that, mostly across the southern boundary of the study area.
Is that over by the park?
Which park?
City Park?
To the west.
No, it's further west than that.
Yes, City Park drain basically is Newton Creek that
Yeah.
covers all of that, which there are
Okay, I forgot.
culverts in there.
No, sorry, it
Um,
was Basin 6.
Yes, it's the south end of Basin 6. Again, we're right where the couplet splits. And there's very large culverts under Main Street and Applegate Street. But when you go south of there's at least one, and I think maybe 2 culverts that are even further downstream between Main Street, or between Applegate Street and the river, that are basically on private property that the city has not historically maintained.
Thank you. So yeah, if the city wants to look into that to make sure that those property owners are aware.
Where we've got these storm drains, there's typically a utility easement that's located, and that's gonna be on the title report, so anybody buying the property is gonna get notification of that before they buy it. It'd be a little odd to send them a letter in the mail or something to notify them.
It's more of like making sure that's in place, because the way that it's worded on here made it seem like that it was kind of, let's see, not quite a for sure thing. I don't know.
I'm not aware, and I didn't specifically look, because there is one other instance that did come up late, very
I'm sorry, your
recently.
audio keeps going out.
Let me see if I can move it a little closer. Not aware of easements in those particular locations. That would have to be further researched. Again, from my discussions with Kevin, I was under the impression that they were truly private. We had another instance between, I gotta get my name straight because it's the Mill Pond Business Park going to Newton Creek. We had those listed as private up until the last revision. And then as that project or that area is being discussed more, Denny in our office noticed that I was calling them private, and because of his extensive history with development review in the city, noted that there were actually easements in place in that location. Discussed that more with Kevin. We corrected that in the report to say that those are public, and we added a CIP project to address those at the point in time when they get needed. There's a little bit of question about there, without digressing too far, because so much of the area upstream from that is wetlands and old log ponds and stuff like that. The calculations on those are very conservative, because we're going to assume they fully develop, recognizing that it's very unlikely. Historically, from the Mill Pond Business Park to Newton Creek hasn't had any significant flooding problems. So the language now reads, if problems become noted there, then the city has budget numbers for a CIP to address that. I mention all that because it's different in my understanding from the things that we're talking about at the very western edge of the city, not aware of any easements over those culverts. We certainly can look and verify that, but the reason that the easements were in place between, the Mill Pond Park site and Newton Creek was because of the proposed development 2006 timeframe. So there was some history there. Again, that's what Denny Muchmore in our office was familiar with, was able to flag that and get corrected. With no historical development that I'm aware of south of the west end of the city, I'm just speculating, but I think it's much less likely that there are easements, which means that the city has no legal right, has no responsibility for those facilities, but they could impact the upstream drainage theoretically. Again, so the language that's in the report is identifying that area as something that's outside of the city's control and making essentially the Public Works Department and the city in general aware that at some point in time, problems could develop there. Keep a lookout for those and just be ready to engage the property owners if they are not maintaining, because if it's their drainage system, they are responsible. And you know, if problems occur upstream because they're not doing maintenance, they could be creating problems for themselves.
Thank you.
So would it be appropriate, Kevin, to reach out to those? I think Councilor Andrade's recommendation was, can we reach out to those property owners and kind of put them on notice that we've updated the storm master plan? Their properties have been identified as having private storm system portions that could have an impact on city storm system, and we anticipate that they'll continue to keep them in good working order.
We certainly could. There's, boy, I can think of only a couple that are private or on private property that would affect us, other than several drainage ditches on the south side of Chapel Drive, which are outside the city growth boundary and under Benton County control. But we can certainly reach out to those people. Yeah, we can do that.
Let's reach out to them. We'll send them a link to the new stormwater master plan. It's been updated.
I just want to make sure, like, if they were unaware with changes that have happened. Cool, thank you. And then in figure 5.2, there's all of these storm runoff maps. Where are the arrows pointing? I couldn't find anything saying whether the arrows were pointing towards drainage source or flow, like the direction of it.
Okay, the storm, what this maps that you're referring to in chapter 5 are representative of are the calculated runoff flows under several different conditions under 50-year storm events.
Yes.
And so they're schematic representations of specific pieces of the storm drain system. If you compare those maps with the maps that are in chapter 3, you'll see that, for example, in the table, it'll say pipe 5.1 or something like that, or no, there's no 5.1 because there's no basin 5, but there's a basin reference and a pipe number reference. And then if you go into the table, you can see the estimated flow carrying capacity of each of those system components. That number is compared with the little node dots there for each subbasin, and those show the estimated runoff under various conditions. And so then what you see is the green, the yellow, and the red indicating the green pipes are believed to be adequate to carry all estimated future flows. The yellow pipes are estimated to be calculated to be large enough to generally carry the future estimated flows. Typically, we like to see what's called a full flow condition, which means that the pipe is flowing full, but no more than that. The yellow pipe is what's called a surcharged condition, which means that you're going to back some water up at the upstream end of those pipes to help force the water through in a kind of a more pressure rather than simple gravity flow condition. We don't believe that the backup is going to be significant enough to cause any problems, so we give it a yellow just to say, hey, kind of watch these a little more closely. And then the red are the ones where our calculations at least show them to be undersized, and those are generally the ones that have ended up as projects to say, hey, these pipes are undersized and need to be replaced with larger pipes. Is that?
Yes, I understand all of that. My question had to do with the way that the arrows point. Is that the way that I'm trying to verify whether it's pointing the way that the water drains?
Yes.
Or the source? Because okay, cool.
It's going to, the arrow is pointing in the direction the water is going.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll note that on the page 6-9, 6.6.7 references 6.6.10, but that doesn't exist. The last one is like 6.6.8, and then it goes to the appendices. So I don't know if there was an intention to have anything after that, or if it just didn't get relabeled.
That was actually, the chapter 6 is largely a historically developed collection of ideas and options for the cities to compare. So as we've done these storm drain master plans over the years, that system has grown, but it's also available to different cities to add something else if there was a specific type of information or funding concept that they wanted to put in there as a point of reference for themselves. We could do that. You found a piece that was overlooked from the master plan for the city of Cresswell, where the city of Cresswell plugged an extra item or two into the document that wasn't specifically, it was something they specifically wanted, wasn't something that was really relevant to Philomath. The section got deleted, the reference was missed.
So it just.
So I just need to delete that. I need to delete that reference.
Thank you. And then I guess, so I don't have any more questions necessarily, but I do have some proposed edits, mostly Scrivener's, but one that would require like a sentence that's essentially verifying what we put in the Eco Northwest documents relating to just housing, the limitations of zoning and how that's going to be changing. So I guess my question is, how should we proceed with those?
Kevin has received other information with, similar corrections, and he's forwarded those to me. I've already made some even into the draft that, is currently technically before you or on your website or whatever. And if there are other things like that that are not, you mentioned that particular one, but if the others are generally minor language or wording corrections that don't change the substance of the document, my recommendation would be to forward them to Kevin. He will forward them to me, and I will incorporate them before I issue the adopted report.
Thank you. And then for something that's a little bit more substantial, like adding that sentence talking about, because like in the report, it says multiple times about how like, what the assumptions are, and therefore if, something changes with the zoning. But there was like one section in particular in the land use community planning where I thought it would be important to reemphasize the limitations because it shows what the different areas are for the different zoning. And as we said in our housing needs analysis, like statement by the council, like these were assumptions that we were going to hold those zoning percentages steady, but as we have been seeing and discussing, like we need to reduce single family home percentages. Like they shouldn't be 60% of the buildable, like between the low, medium, high density housing and stuff. And so I think it would be important to restate it in that spot. Should I be making a motion for that, or?
Can you read the sentence that you referred to?
Do you mean like the one that I would add?
Yeah.
Is your concern that the zoning might change and that therefore it would lead to more impervious surface that would create more flow through that basin or that area?
Yes.
Because they would be required in the, I don't know if it hit in the planning, but certainly in the design review, it would be hit that they'd have to retain that water on site, and it wouldn't increase any flows downstream from there, and it would prevent that. So as long as, well, it shouldn't change the flows.
I guess what I meant was like, so you have like a certain amount within the R1 zone, but in theory, there might be certain places in the city where we'll be rezoning it to R2 or R3, and that will affect whether or not, that in theory, that should affect the flows, and then that will affect whether or not we have future capacity in those areas, and so we might need to add that section to the CIP for upsizing. And so I just thought it would be, like I said, there's at least one sentence in the report that talks about like if you're going to have rezoning, but like we don't anticipate, like there's a sentence that says something along the lines of like we don't anticipate rezoning or something to that effect. But I just think it's important to state like, well, actually, like we're rezoning right now with the planning commission. And I don't know how big the changes are proposed to be. But I just,
Yeah, I mean, if you want to make a specific motion to change the document, that you can always make the motion to change the document, but just to relieve the concern, I guess, with stormwater management, it's about impervious surface, really is what it's about, because anything hitting the natural soil is going to find its way down into the water table or find its way and drain naturally as it currently does. When you're adding impervious surface, whether it be residential, so roofs, parking, driveways, walkways, when it's hitting that, you're really not altering your lot coverage for going from residential to commercial or higher density, lower density residential. They change some, but unless you're talking about like really large areas, I don't think it's be significant.
Okay.
And what Kevin was getting after is at the time of development, we're going to look at what those impacts are, and their engineers are gonna have to calculate what is the actual impact, what's the total amount of impervious surface, what does that generate as far as waters, and those are the calculations they're gonna use regardless of what's in the master plan. So the master plan is to help kind of establish those bigger numbers for projects in the capital project list, would you get? The individual projects are gonna alter a little bit, and the time that we catch all those zone changes is when we update the storm master plan, which won't be 20 years from now. It'll be sooner than that, because as we're rezoning, as we're growing, these master plans will get updated more often. So if that, I mean, I hope that kind of resolves the concern a little bit.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But I get you, I mean, we're not gonna presume that this is an industrial area that's gonna have one large building on it. And so we're only providing a 18-inch storm pipe, and then we're gonna rezone that to a large apartment complex that's gonna have a lot of impervious surface, and it might demand a 24-inch pipe. But we've only put in the capital project list for an 18-inch, not a 24, so we're not collecting enough money in our SDCs to provide for that, right?
Yeah.
I think the impact's really gonna be pretty small, as long as we stay on top of and update our storm master plan on a, 8 to 10 year basis as opposed to every 20-year basis. It'll catch up to itself.
Thank you both for
Sure.
connecting all of that.
And based on that, could we call the question maybe?
I have one more thing that I would like to change.
There also hasn't been a question yet.
What?
There is no motion to call
Okay.
yet, so.
Oh, I would like to make a motion to edit the gendered language, make it non-gendered. There's a couple times, specifically I noticed it, 6-7, when they talk about it, there's an example of like a hypothetical homeowner.
You include that in the edits that you forward to.
I just wasn't sure if that was, motion worthy.
I think those are fine.
Just kidding, thank you.
Yeah, just submit them submit those to Kevin.
Okay, sounds good.
Sure.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for asking.
Questions?
Counselor McMorrin.
I move to approve resolution 24-12 with Scribner's corrections, adopting the storm drainage master plan with Scribner's corrections, dated May 2024, and replacing all previous versions.
Second, motion by Counselor McMorrin, second by Counselor Ryan. All in favor, raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Sorry, I can't see. Counselor Lehman's hand go up, but I didn't think that's what you said.
So, yeah.
I need to go like this.
I just do.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Kevin.
Yep,
Thank
thanks, Ray.
Your reports of boards, commissions, committees, council liaisons, and staff, and we have.
Been busy. We're just getting into summer, so a lot of projects underway. I just really appreciate having great staff that are all busy in their own departments and still collaborating together on things. We meet every week as a management team, if you don't know, and go through quite a bit of material, a little bit of elbowing and jousting each other some, but we have a good time and we are all working very hard. In fact, I think I leave most meetings saying, let's break, everybody's got a ton of stuff to do, so let's stop sitting around talking about it and get back to work. And that collaboration is important, but each of these departments are working really hard and doing good work. I'll make note, I guess just a couple of things. City recorder included in there, the Laserfish document portal is open. There's a ton of information there. put you on the spot, Ruth, but do you wanna maybe hit a couple of high points, some of the cool stats you were sharing with staff earlier?
Well, I will say that we recently used the Laserfish portal to, for the library feasibility study. The firm that is working on that project wanted a complete set of the library, the original library blueprints. Those are large documents when you scan them, and they're really difficult to transmit. So we were able to have Public Works scan them, load them into the Laserfish portal, and then we created a link on the website for the engineering firm to be able to access and download them from. So nobody had to shift around, move around, deliver anything. That's going to be a great tool for us internally. Externally, we keep adding documents on there, and this will save us time when we have revisions to council packets and things like that. And it just gives the public a lot more access. We have 30 years worth of city council minutes available on that portal.
Can't get to sleep.
Yeah.
Solution.
Not many cities under 10,000 can actually say that.
So, and that was ARPA, some of the ARPA funds are what paid for that project. It was really about transparency and being able to get that information available to the public, should they look for it. The Water Master Plan, if you recognize, that was a link through that as well. And so again, these bigger documents that just take up a lot of space, that's what this is able to handle. Other than that, again, some personnel, not necessarily turnover, a little bit turnover, and some looking for a couple of new positions. One of them specifically is on the budget getting approval, but we didn't want to wait till July to start recruiting, and so we were recruiting that, pending budget approval. But we did want to get it out there for that groundskeeper and janitorial service. We're paying a little bit of a premium right now for janitorial services, and so we're trying to get that position lined up. On the planning side, I'm kind of doing double duty a little bit on the planning, so that's been busy. But again, appreciate Ruth and Leilani really stepping up and helping with those efforts. That's been a team effort the last few weeks to keep that going. Police, Officer Thomas DeVick, he's going to graduate PSST May 24th, later this month. So then he'll come and he'll start his on-site training, which will be great. Not to skip over Blake Bowers doing the drug recognition expert training program. That'll be great for us. Right now, when we pull the car over, we end up having to call and wait for somebody from either the county or from Corvallis to be available to come over and help. This will give us somebody either on duty or in town that can be able to help with those. Most of those end up happening after hours for whatever reason, which is when which is when Sergeant Bowers is available. So that'll be good. And we'll go through all the rest of it. Public Works is busy as well. The list of projects is there. I'll make a special note because I know Kevin had a hand in the new sign that went up at City Park. Everybody always sees these great projects. Kevin designed that and put that together, and the Public Works crew installed that. I've had a ton of compliments. It looks awesome. It's beefy. It looks timbery. It looks very Philomath. And you can now identify that there's a park at the end of the street before you get to the park, which is nice for people looking for the park from out of the area. So, and we've heard more and more compliments about that. So kudos Kevin Fier and Public Works Department for the new sign at Public Works, and very similar, in fact, matches the new one at Cochrane Park as well. And so I think we're hitting a kind of a theme going forward for parks, and we'll probably see more of those signs going forward as budget allows. And finance moving forward. We're right in the middle of budget with budget meeting this week, next week, this week, Wednesday. Just sneaks right on up.
And the following Wednesday night.
Yeah, we'll be 2 weeks in a row, this Wednesday and next Wednesday. I think those are highlights, not to miss anything important, but any questions on none?
You know, it seems to me like every time we meet, your reports are longer.
Yeah.
A lot going on.
Question about, I know you've got a search open for a planner. Were there any candidates from the previous search that would be viable?
Chelsea sent them an invite. I don't know if they're still interested or not. It's been 5 months, 6 months now, so, well, more like 7 months probably since they responded. I know she was gonna email them just to, that it opened. So we've got one application in already, but I won't say much more than that. Like more, always take a few, it's always good to have a few options.
There are no other questions or comments, Counselor.
Are we doing reports?
Council reports.
Okay, I'd like to direct your attention to the city newsletter, wherein there's a description of the Philomath Boulevard, US 20, Oregon 34 conceptual design open house, which I did watch and which you can find on the email that Ruth sent to all of us. There's a link for it. I would recommend watching it if you get a chance, but in particular filling out the survey at the end so that we can get as much comment as possible. Again, there's nothing in this design that's going to increase the capacity of that corridor, and there won't be, so don't set your expectations on being able to drive any faster to Corvallis than you currently can. But there are a lot of safety and consistency is a big thing to ODOT. Being able to know that it's going to take 15 minutes, no matter what time of day you go, theoretically, to drive to Corvallis from here is as important to them as the fact that it takes 15 minutes when it's only 4 miles. So anyway, I would highly recommend taking the survey and looking at the presentation because I'm sure people will start to ask questions when projects start to get online.
Thank you.
I have a question. Does anyone know what the study was? Like I saw they had some, I don't know what they're called, those strips on the highway relatively recently within the past like week or two for like a study for counts.
Oh, the counting strips?
Yeah. I was just curious if like we know what they're for.
I don't know.
Or
They'll do counts periodically. I don't know that there's any specific projects there, but there might be, sometimes, projects, developments will require a traffic study of some sort.
Oh, yeah,
So it could be private, it could be ODOT, I don't know.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Thanks.
Yes, Counselor McMorrin.
Last Friday, the Chamber of Commerce held their first after hours event. I think it's literally just called Chamber After Hours, but it was lovely, and they're hoping to do them quarterly. So the next one, I'll be sure to send that out to everyone, and I hope you're all able to attend as long as there's not, 4 of us standing close together. But it's just a free event that is open to, I think, the entire community, but it's geared towards chamber members. And there's food and refreshments and sort of just getting to know one another and more about different businesses in town. So I think it was a big hit for the first one, and I hope to see some of you there at the next one. The other thing is we have our first table at Music in the Park on Thursday. I have to leave a little early because I am now needed at the school board meeting that same evening. So I'm happy to go there and then go to the school board. If there's someone who's just dying to go to Music in the Park, I'm happy to give that to you as well. But if not, I can just show up and then.
Is there a topic or are you just?
I think we threw a bunch of different, you can talk about whatever you want, but we threw a couple of different, we were kind of thinking inclusivity committee because it's us too, but then also like streetscapes and all the hot topics that, stuff you want to know. So I think it's the first one, so people will have varying questions probably.
Do we need to resend that out to you, the link to sign up for those tables for farmers market and music in the park. Would that be helpful?
That's a good idea.
Wouldn't hurt.
Hasn't signed up yet.
I've got some of the ODOT handout stuff.
Okay.
First line up for information, all that I can get you between now and
In
then.
fact, I think the current table is listed.
Oh, yeah, it is on there.
Information correspondent.
And I have inclusivity committee.
Oh, great.
Like,
So yes, if you're looking for something to do on Thursday, let me know. And if not, that's all good.
Are you gonna take the canopy
Yeah, sure.
on a table too?
That'd probably be
Swing
good.
by in your pickup truck and we'll
There we
load you up.
Perfect.
Have a PA system too. if you're not-
Want to sing a song?
Disco ball?
I think he does, don't you?
You need one, and we have a disco ball at our house that we don't use very often.
Daily?
Any other comments?
Well, upcoming events, since we're talking about events, May 31st is a PYAC fundraising carnival. That will be held at its annual event, starts at 5:30. That probably has been involved in years past. I will be working concessions on
That's
that
what they
event. Should be a
always
lot of
do
fun.
to the liaison.
So,
They're like, oh, all the board members are smart enough not to do concessions. Let's see
I know,
if the
thank,
newbie will.
and thank you for the warning on this one, just kidding. And we're making great progress with the school district regarding 16th Street, which is really exciting about that. And Hughes Excavation is helping PCS with their parking lot expansion, and that's really helpful and needful and good thing. So. And can I say one non-council thing? I got an email from a community member. She had spoken with a manager at a grocery store at the coast, and they are interested in maybe talking more to us. And our city manager, I forwarded an email today to our city manager in regards to contacting this person that would like to explain their business. Personally, individually owned grocery store chain. So we'll see how that goes.
Awesome.
Okay. We're not available today. Thank you all for
There we go.